Truly True Sports Network. The NFL show, as always, is brought to you by PathSecurity.direct. Make sure you check them out for the highest grade CBD available. You can get 1 or 2 months for the price of one. Just go to PathSecurity.direct. I'm your host for the NFL show, Mike Goodpasser. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great, Mike. Excited to be back with you today with another legend.
All right. And on Monday, if you were here, we had Rocky Blair. Today, we've got his adversary in Super Bowl IX from the Minnesota Vikings, one of the great running backs in NFL history, Chuck Foreman. How you doing, Chuck?
I'm good. I can't complain.
And Rocky said to tell you hi, by the way.
Good, man. I hope he's doing well.
All right, Sam, you want to go ahead and start us off?
Yeah, so Chuck, you made the Super Bowl as a rookie or in your rookie season.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, did you feel like you'd be back again, or were you surprised by how quickly you got to the Super Bowl during your career?
Well, of course, when I got to the Vikings, they were very much a veteran team, and they had some winning ways anyway. I think with my skill set, they're doing things a little bit different. Maybe it helped the offense because the year before, I think they got Fran Tarkenton in, and then they had John Gilliam he came in, and I was just another addition. Of course, I brought different, I think we went from the 2 yards in a cloud of dust to a different style of offense when I got there.
Yeah, and when you talk about your style of offense, there weren't many running backs like you in the NFL at that time. You were one of the first guys that could do just about everything.
Well, actually, I was a fullback, so people don't know that. But that's my position. I played fullback, and actually, I think we were pretty much the first team to use the runner as a receiver, especially in my time. Obviously, right now, they've got several players, Kamara, Cook, McAfee, several other ones that are pretty much doing what we did back then. So it's good to see.
So, Chuck, in your final season in college at Miami, you actually had more receiving yards than rushing yards, you were talking about earlier, but that was a big change from 1971 when you had 950 rushing yards. You were primarily running the ball at that point. What was the change there? Why did they change how they used you offensively?
Well, I think at the time, athletically, they could move me around. And I think it was when I was at Miami, I went where they needed me most. And then the times I played both ways, offense and defense. But I'm not complaining. It really made me a well-rounded football player when I got to the Vikings. Actually, probably one of the last draft choices that when you got drafted number 1, the 12th player in the whole draft, when I got there, they said, hey, where do you want to play, offense or defense, wide receiver, running back, or corner? So that was kind of different. I'm sure they don't do that anymore.
No, probably not. And you talked about your time in Miami. You played for Fran Tarkenton for a year or two. You want to talk about Fran a little bit? He's a guy that went to the University of Kentucky, had some success there, actually beat Tennessee in 1977. And he's a guy I had a pleasure to know. He actually coached the Cincinnati Rockers in the old Arena Football League. I got to meet him that way. Seemed like a really nice guy. You want to talk a little bit about Fran?
Yeah, Coach Kersey is a great athlete, got great personality, things like that. Very confident guy. Football knowledge, of course. He's a great motivator, and I think he was key to the beginning of the Hurricane success because he was a great recruiter, obviously, and brought a lot of great players in. And then the other coaches came in and took over when he went to Kentucky, and Miami has been a great program since.
So you're talking about your college head coach. What about your NFL head coach? What about Bud Grant? How did he approach the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl? Was it business as usual, or was there extra emphasis on the game? How did Bud Grant approach those 3 Super Bowls?
Bud was pretty much we did the same thing at the Super Bowl. Well, we didn't do the same thing. Our preparations, we didn't get to go out and mingle and things like that. We were pretty much shut down when we participated in the Super Bowl. So we were pretty much on lockdown, and we changed up a lot of things. I thought, like we had different formations. We didn't do a whole lot of what we did that got us there. I think when we concentrated too much on what the other people could do instead of what what we could do. That's my opinion anyway.
All right, you played on a team that had a lot of Hall of Famers, guys like Ron Yeri, Alan Page, Fran Tarkenton. A guy that stands out to me who is not in the Hall of Fame, who recently passed away, is Matt Blair, who I interviewed 2015. He was a great guy, and he was a great football player. You want to talk a little bit about Matt?
Matt was probably him and Fred McNeil and Wally Hilgenberg. I used to go up against the best every day in practice. So they were pretty much, with their athletic ability and their talent, we went against each other every day in practice. And so I went up against the best every day, and Matt was certainly one of those guys. And, we did lose him too soon. And Matt was one of the guys that, he played special teams. He loved the game. And, he played well all the time.
All right, you want to talk real quick? You want to talk a little bit about those practices, because I don't think when you say practice, a guy that's like 25 or 26 that's been to some training camps in the last few years, I don't think he understands what you mean by practice with that Vikings team in the mid 1970s.
Well, practices then were a little more physical. Now they, of course, it's probably better for the player now, but. When I said practice, I mean, we had physical practices 2 hours a day, 2.5 hours, whatever. But, you had to go full speed. And I thought that made us, prepped us right. But then, too, physically it took its toll, I think. It's not like it is now. You come in and you practice. I don't know how long they practice. I don't think they do anything with pads much anymore. And so it's changed quite a bit as far as the physical aspect of it, the preparation anyway. And so when I say practice, I mean you were out there going, you were going at it for the 2 hours for sure.
Yeah, you wore your shorts and t-shirt, right, Chuck?
No shorts and t-shirts. Every now and then, Bud would let us wear shorts and shoulder pads and helmets, but. Other than that, no, he was pretty much, it was a physical game at practice.
Wait, and you had guys like Ron Yeri and Mick Tinglehoff blocking for you, and both those guys are in the Hall of Fame now. But they had some Hall of Famers on the other side of the line, too. So you mentioned the practices being very physical. Was there ever any kind of like internal rivalry or tension there between the guys? Because you had Hall of Famers on both sides of the ball.
You mentioned Mick Tinglehoff, and you mentioned Ryan Yeri. You didn't mention Ed White.
Oh yeah, Ed White.
I'm not taking anything away from the other two, but Ed White was probably our best lineman.
Yeah, I actually wrote an article a few years ago about Ed White and how he should be a Hall of Famer.
Well, I don't know how the Hall of Fame works.
Nobody does, Chuck.
I really can't figure it out. Yeah, has a lot of great players up there, so I have to give my friend Ed White. When Ed White left, the whole running game left.
Then 1973, your rookie season, I believe you were Rookie of the Year. You guys go to the playoffs. Nobody expected you to beat the Dallas Cowboys. You go to Dallas, beat them in Dallas, go to play the Miami Dolphins. What's it like as a rookie to play in an NFC Championship game, win it, and then go to the Super Bowl?
Well, it certainly was, something. I was happy to be in the NFL at the time, but the longer I was with the Vikings and their winning ways, and when I played with the Vikings, certainly the veterans were the ones that, kept you in place and let you know what you had to do. Bud Grant was just kind of like the guy walking around, and he knew he had the captains in place to make sure everybody knew what they had to do to be successful. So he had a great bunch of guys there that I was able to learn from. Man. They set the standard.
Did your mentality change over time? Because you went to 3 Super Bowls. Did it over time how you prep for those Super Bowls or those big games, or your mentality towards them? How did it alter? How did you mature as you spent more time in the NFL and got more used to playing on big stages?
Well, I think the people around you set the standards, and you had to conform to it or you weren't around. That's simple as that. And Bub was able to bring the guys in here that were pretty much more mature, and he didn't tolerate any mistakes. So many rookies didn't. Not many rookies got to play. I was really fortunate that I understood that early. That if you wanted to play, you had to, you better not make many mistakes. And we had, like I said, we had a veteran team, and all I did was just follow the guys. Like, we had at the time Oscar Reed, Bill Brown, and Dave Osborne, hardworking guys, and I just did what they did and prepped like they did. So got myself ready to play.
Yeah, and you had a great rivalry. It seemed like you and the LA Rams played every year in the playoffs. And the game that stands out to me most is 1977, the Rams-Vikings Mud Bowl game. I don't know if Sam's a young one, so a lot of times he hadn't seen stuff that happened back when it mattered. But the Mud Bowl game is a game that still stands out to me because that was a year where I think the Rams thought that was their year. They were going to win the Super Bowl. You guys go in there and upset them 14-7 in a game that, to say a quagmire, would probably be a huge understatement.
Well, obviously they thought they were going to win. We obviously had other plans. It wasn't. That year was kind of a funny year for us, but we were able to rise to the occasion when we had to. Had a lot of great players on our team. I thought the Rams had some really fine football players too, and to go into that Mud Bowl, it certainly, if the rain wasn't there, everybody thought we would have lost. Certainly, we were able to play in bad weather like that because we play here in Minnesota. But it is what it is, and we came out and won the game.
Yeah, the thing about that year is Bob Lee was the quarterback, I think, at that point because he'd broken his leg against the Cincinnati Bengals when Gary Burley had hit him in a game that I think you guys won 14-10.
Right. So, and Bob Lee was a really good quarterback himself, very smart guy. He was a little more mobile, but he was mobile too. So, yeah, he came in and did what he had to do. And, we beat the Rams. And, of course, nobody expected us to beat them. We did. We thought we'd beat them, but, we went in their turf. And I don't know. I think the Viking guys were with us because the bad weather came with us and gave us an edge.
Right, Sam?
Yeah, Chuck, you mentioned it earlier. You were the 12th overall pick, so obviously taken very high in the draft. There's a lot more fanfare, obviously, with the draft nowadays, where they have guys go up on the stage with the commissioner, have the jerseys out and all that kind of stuff, take pictures and all that.
Right.
But what was it like for you? What was your reaction to being drafted, and where were you when you found out?
Actually, I was in my apartment down southwest Miami, a place called Perrine. There were some friends of mine that came down from Washington, D.C., and they went to Howard University. I'm from Maryland. They came down. We had a few people over, but it wasn't any big thing. My representative at the time, John Wooten, he was there. Not there, but it wasn't like that. I got a call from the Vikings and said, "Hey, we just took you. There'll be a plane ticket for you, and we'll see you when you get here." And somebody picked me up at the airport, and that was it. It wasn't like it is today, believe me.
Yeah, I know. I've heard some stories. I remember interviewing Robert Brazil, and he's talking about him and Walter Payton were actually out riding a motorcycle. And somebody just kind of told them when they were in the store, "Hey, you got drafted." So
right,
it's a lot different than it is now.
Yeah, it's a big show and a lot more money for sure. So
a lot more money.
Guys, yeah, lots and lots more, man. I thought I was rich when I made that. I got that $50,000 bonus and that $26,000 my first year. I thought I was great, but nowadays, well, more power to them. They just better know who sacrificed for, so they can get to that place, man. Because a lot of guys that started the union, that were in that union, that they didn't get to play after they were showed their support of the union.
Yeah, and really, if you go current players, I don't know if it's any better than what it was, but I think that you guys who built the NFL, and you built it into $1 billion industry for these owners. It wasn't these owners that did it. It was off the work of you guys. The fact that they've kind of let you guys slip by the wayside is something that really bothers me.
Well, it bothers all of us. You know, I wish I could say that I was a major factor in it, but I think the guys before me, if you remember a name, Johnny Sample, you look at John Mackey, you look at, for our representative, Alan Page, who went on to become a Minnesota judge. And, I remember Alan was really frustrated because a lot of the guys on our team didn't support the union. And I think he walked away from it because of it. But Alan was a great leader on and off the field. Actually, of all the players I played with, don't misunderstand me, I respect and think a lot of all of them. But there's only one player that I ever admired that I played with, and that's Alan Page, for a lot of different reasons. But he was.
And I would say this: it makes perfect sense if you look with what Alan Page did with his life after he stopped playing football.
Right. Certainly, Alan went on to do some great things. A lot of guys did, but Alan Page, for me, the guy that I looked up to a lot of guys, like I said, but the admiration, I don't, admire too many people, but he's one of them. That I just had a lot of great respect and admiration for all the things that he did on and off the field.
All right, Sam.
You had a lot of admiration for Alan Page, but growing up, when you were much younger, was there ever any player, any football player that you looked at or idolized? Was there an athlete in general you looked at and idolized?
Let me see. When I grew up in Maryland, obviously, and there was the Baltimore Colts and the Washington Redskins, and when I watched TV and I watched football, it was Lenny Moore was the big time guy. Tom Maddy back in the day. Now I was a kid now. You got to remember that really. But they were all versatile and all great. And then there was Bobby Mitchell with the Redskins, because we all loved Sonny Jurgensen because he was just kind of a character, but he was very, effective as a quarterback. There's a lot of guys that we were, for me anyway, but those were the guys that I looked up to. And then Lenny Moore and my high school coach were really good friends, and he would always speak at our banquet. But he was one of the guys that I always wanted to be versatile. I didn't want to be just like a one-dimensional guy. I always looked up to the guys that could do everything, and that's, those are the guys that I remember. Then when I got to college, the Miami Dolphins, they had Jim Kick, and I liked his game because he was versatile also, and I got to go to Dolphins practices and watch those guys. They had great players, so I was able to watch those guys coming up through college.
Yeah, and the Super Bowl, I think it's safe to say you guys were probably the greatest team to never win the Super Bowl that got there. And a lot of that was because you played three of the greatest teams that ever lived. And, when you look at Super Bowl 8, the Miami Dolphins, who were coming off the perfect season, 1979, the Steelers win their first ring with that great defense. 1976, the Oakland Raiders. Out of those three teams, which one of those three teams was better?
Oh, the best team I ever played against was the Miami Dolphins, no question. Well coached, a lot of talent, and I might be a little partial because I, went to college in Miami, got to see them all the time. Pittsburgh, I thought, was the team that we should have beat. Oakland Raiders, mistakes killed us in that game. I don't think the talent, I don't think they were that much better than us, but you fumble on the 1 yard line going in with Chuck Foreman blocking instead of carrying the ball, things don't work out for you.
Yeah, I remember that. I was cheering for the Vikings. I actually had a Vikings jersey because I was a Bengals fan, Chuck. I got to have a favorite team during the playoffs, and it was always the Vikings.
Right.
But, all right, Sam, where you want to go from here?
Well, I know I'm going to have to move on.
We're almost done, so that's why I was. Right. Let's just go ahead. Can you give us a breakdown of this Super Bowl and what you think will happen?
Well, I guess I'm a little partial. Well, first of all, we got one great young quarterback and a great quarterback. And Tom Brady. I'm kind of hoping. I'm an NFC guy, so I'm kind of hoping that Tampa Bay pulls it off. But I got to tell you, I have never in my time seen a team like Kansas City with so much speed and a quarterback that can do so many different things in different ways. So as much as I want to see Tampa pull it off and Tom Brady win it, because I think he's actually a really good person, and not just from what I see and what I hear about him, but Kansas City, they got too much warp speed, and then you throw in the great tight end. Then you consider the fact that, a few weeks ago you had a, wide receiver, Tyree, he had 200 yards in the first quarter. And so it's going to be interesting to see, but I think it's going to be a great Super Bowl.
All right, Chuck. It was an absolute honor to have you on the show today. Hopefully you come back sometime.
Well, let's stay in touch, man. I'm sorry I missed you the other day, but let's do that.
All right.
After the Super Bowl.
All right. Thanks a lot,
Thank
Chuck.
you, guys. All right. Yeah.
Thank you, Chuck.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, Sam, let's talk a little Super Bowl. All right, because I just found this by DeMaurice Smith of the NFLPA, and talking about whether he says there's no COVID-19 scenario where the Super Bowl could be moved. And he was asked this during Wednesday on ESPN's Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zublon show. I don't watch that show because, number one, it just sounds stupid. But number two, if Mahomes or Brady gets hurt, Smith says he doesn't see any scenario where they would agree with the league to move the Super Bowl. And do you agree with that? If one of these quarterbacks was all of a sudden test positive, couldn't play in the Super Bowl, should the Super Bowl be played or should it be moved?
That's difficult. I want to see both these teams go at each other with full power. And I understand the Super Bowl, it's very narrative driven, especially when it comes to like selling tickets and selling the idea of watching the Super Bowl. I don't necessarily care about the narrative so much. I think that will go out and they will play the game, even if someone like Patrick Mahomes isn't available, but Tom Brady is. I think it would still play the game, but it obviously would take away from it. I mean, you want to see both teams at full power. You want to see Mahomes versus Brady, not just because of the narrative, but because they're two great quarterbacks.
Well, I think this, though. I think that there's no way you move this game, and I think there's a precedent that's been set. The Cleveland Browns had to play without Kevin Stefanski. They also played against the New York Jets without any of their top four receivers. So it's been played out precedent-wise that this is the way this season's going to be played. And when you look at that, I don't see how you can move this game because you can't change the rules. The NFL's already changed the rules on how the game is officiated during the playoffs, which is dumb as hell. So you can't change this rule also. I mean, it's just kind of stupid.
Well, and the Broncos played a game with a wide receiver, a quarterback, where he went like 1 for 9 for an interception, like 15 yards. So, yeah, you kind of have to play this game. You can't go back and change it now because that's kind of unfair to all the teams who had to play with no wide receivers or with no quarterbacks. So you have to kind of play this out and see how it goes. I'm sure that the teams are like half the guys on lockdown basically right now. I mean, Chuck Foreman was talking about it where, Bud Grant didn't have the guys out, didn't let the guys go out before the Super Bowl, had them basically locked down and ready to play and fully focused. I think if you're the Chiefs or you're the Buccaneers, you're making sure you're doing that, given very little to no chance that you guys get exposed to COVID-19.
All right. So when you look at last year's draft, the 2020 draft, I read a couple articles talking about redrafting the 2020 draft. And there was one question that stuck out to me that I saw both of these sites where they switched to the number 2 pick would be. And that was the original pick is Chase Young, who had a great season, especially at the end of the year. Now they're saying the Washington Redskins, because that's what they are, the Washington Redskins, should have picked Justin Herbert. Do you agree?
I understand what they're saying because you always want to take the quarterback and you can't really win any scenarios without at least a decent quarterback most of the time unless you have a historically dominant defense, which Washington doesn't. They have a good defense, not a historically dominant one. This is not the Buccaneers or the Baltimore Ravens from 2000s. You're not going to be that kind of team. So I understand what they're saying. Herbert at 2. I just feel like Chase Young is guaranteed to be an all-pro basically at some point in time. And I don't know if Justin Herbert will ever get to that point. I understand from a need perspective, yes, but from talent perspective, Chase Young is probably the better player.
Probably. But there is questions there now.
Yeah. There's only 1 year in. We're only 1 year in. We got plenty of time to figure it out.
Yeah. Anything else, Sam?
Not really. We're kind of light on NFL news here until we get to the Super Bowl. I'm sure after that we'll have a lot more to talk about. But for now, NFL news just isn't there.
Yeah, tomorrow we'll have another NFL legend, Nick Lowry, who I'm sure will speak about the Kansas City Chiefs at length. Of course, Nick was an all-pro kicker during the 1980s with the Chiefs, one of the great kickers in NFL history. So he'll stop by to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl tomorrow. But if you're done, Sam, I'm done. Make sure you check out pathofpurity.direct, a 2-month supply for the price of one. So make sure, pathofpurity.direct, best CBD on the market. Stick a tablet under your tongue. It dissolves, goes immediately into your blood system or bloodstream, and then over the next 12 hours, time releases. So make sure you check them out, pathofpurity.direct. You can follow Sam Teets at SamTeets33. You can follow me at Grueling Truth. So for now, he's Sam Teets. I'm Mike Goodpastor. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.